Добрий ранок. Добрий ранок. Прошу сідайте. Будь ласка. Просимо. Будемо починати нашу сесію. Дякую. Вітаємо всіх вас сьогодні ранок до нашої сесії Funding Our Communities. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning, Funding Our Communities. Мене звати Orysia Boychuk. I'm the president of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Alberta Provincial Council. I will be moderating this session. This workshop is presented with the generous support of the Ukrainian Canadian Foundation of Taras Shevchenko. Thank you for your contribution, without which this Congress would not have been possible. Дякую. Thank you. Today, we will explore practical, forward-thinking approaches to strengthening the financial sustainability of our organizations and the communities we serve. Today, we are very fortunate to have a group of experienced leaders who bring perspectives from across the fundraising landscape, the strategy, grants, community engagement, and campaign promotion. Each panelist will share insights with you that you can take back to your own work, including actionable items and ideas to start doing, and perhaps a few things we should stop doing as we collectively strive to fundraise with purpose, clarity, and impact. We will begin with Janine Kuzma, who will guide us through current fundraising strategies and trends, offering key lessons learned and practical takeaways drawn from real-world experiences. Janine is a seasoned fundraiser professional with deep expertise in nonprofit sector. She holds a BA from University of Toronto and postgraduate certificate in fundraising management. She has further distinguished herself by earning a certificate in fundraising executive designation. Janine is an active member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, and the International Society of Female Professionals. She serves on the board of directors of an international foundation, contributing strategic insight and sector leadership. Over the course of her career, Janine has successfully led fundraising campaigns and initiatives for a wide range of organizations, including those focused on childhood, cancer, youth mental health, education, and Ukrainian Canadian community, including the Ivan Franko Homes and the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Our second speaker will be Bohdana Bashuk, and she will walk through grant opportunities available through the Shevchenko Foundation, along with guidance on how to prepare a compelling and successful application, knowledge that is invaluable with any organization seeking stable and meaningful support. Bohdana is an executive director of the Shevchenko Foundation with over 20 years of experience in non-for-profit sector, in culture and heritage administration. Prior to joining the Shevchenko Foundation in 2013, she worked as an administrator at Orysia Ukrainian Cultural and Educational Center in Winnipeg. She serves on the board of the Belgian Alliance Credit Union in Winnipeg. A veteran television and radio broadcaster, Bohdana was the host moderator of Open for Discussion, a national weekly show for Women's Television Network. And for 20 years, she produced and hosted a daily Ukrainian radio program, CKJS Radio Winnipeg. She has narrated films, produced and directed live event shows and festivals in Canada. We also have with us Krystina Waler, who will share insights on her topic, how foundations and organizations can work together to strengthen our communities, adding another important dimension to understanding effective fundraising. Krystia is Director of Ukrainian Initiatives at the Temurtei Foundation. James and Louise Temurtei established the Temurtei Foundation in 1997, driven by an inherent sense of responsibility to contribute back to their communities. She has lived and worked in Ukraine on various periods of time since 2005. Throughout this time, she has been involved in many projects, mostly notable from 2014 to 2019. Krystina worked with the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center, and the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine to coordinate and execute surgical missions that operated on Ukrainians who sustained traumatic injury while fighting in for Ukraine's freedom. Most recently, Krystina was the executive director of Help Us Help charity, an organization that helps vulnerable children and veterans across Ukraine. And finally, we have Valeriy Kostyuk, and he will speak about the work of Canada-Ukraine Foundation and introduce additional strategies for promoting fundraising campaigns, highlighting approaches that help organizations mobilize communities and amplify their messages. Valeriy joined the Canada-Ukraine Foundation as Executive Director in August 2024, a Ukrainian-Canadian producer with extensive experience in entertainment industry. Valeriy specialized in art and cultural projects over his career. He has spearheaded major theater productions, concerts, exhibits with leading companies such as Starbucks Entertainment, Lighthouse, Immerse, and Theater Turtle. Among his notable achievements are producing the internationally acclaimed Immerse Disney animation exhibit, Wow Las Vegas Spectacular in Dubai, Charlotte, a tri-colored play with music, which became the first professional Canadian theatrical production to tour Ukraine. Since 2020, Valeriy has spearheaded the production of Ukraine's first Immerse exhibition, Immersive Shevchenko, Soul of Ukraine, which has toured internationally, raising awareness and funds for Ukraine. So we will begin our session by having each speaker come up and speak for about 10 minutes. Following that, we will have an opportunity to ask questions. There are mics set up, so please come to the mic at the end of the session, and we'll be happy to take your questions. Дякую. First, I'd like to introduce to you Janine Kuzma to come up.
Thank you, Orysia, and welcome everyone. And before I start, I want you all to imagine a number. $1 trillion. This is the estimate amount of wealth that is being transferred right now from one generation of baby boomers to the next. A $1 trillion that is reshaping philanthropy today as we speak. So we know the money is here for us. The question is, how do we get to this money, especially that we know that the $1 trillion exists in assets, not in cash. So as fundraisers, we are not longer asking for cash money. We are also asking for money in assets. We are becoming a wealth transfer catalysts or specialists. So in my next 10 minutes, I will try to tell you about best strategies, best trends to get to $1 trillion. So what are the strategies? First, we have to shift from transactional focus, which is, it's all about the organization, to a donor-centric focus, and we have to pay attention to donor-centric retention and donor-centric relationships, because those represent the highest rate on return. So stop treating your donors as an ATM machines. Focus on their desire to be a hero in your organization's mission story. We have to also remember the 5 times rule, which is it costs 5 to 7 times more to acquire a new donor than to keep the existing one. So make sure you implement a high-touched, great donor experience. If you don't have already, create a dedicated middle-level program for your donors. And the middle-level program is donors who donate to you $1,000 to about $10,000, because those donors are your potential major gift donors or planned giving donors. Also, you have to concentrate and strengthen and build trust through the communication and stewardship. Personalization is non-negotiable. Segment your donors based on their giving level, preference, and program affinity. And stop using generic batch and blast appeals. The non-ask thank you calls are also very important, and board and the executive should call the donors and thank them personally. This is a very powerful tool to build strong relationships. And always remember to track all the contacts with the donor in your CRM. Transparency is another strategy. Use impact reports. And I think Ukrainian organizations are very good in using impact reports to let their donor know about what difference their gifts are making. So you have to also move away beyond the general financials. You also have to focus on diversification. Don't rely too heavily on a handful of large donors, which we all tend to do, and a single fundraising channels. Use all the channels. So, for example, apply to foundations to support your programs. Ask for corporate sponsorships. Ask for monthly gifts and planned gifts. And build a sustainable revenue mix. Actively promote the 4 pillars of giving, which is annual gifts for cash, monthly giving, those are the recurring giving, major gifts, which are usually from the assets and donor advice funds, and planned gifts, which are the gifts in the future. Those gifts stabilize your cash flow and future security of your organization. Finally, focus on integration and collaboration. The one pipeline approach is crucial. So make sure you don't treat your annual giving, major giving, planned giving as different programs. Unify them. Last but not least is the collaboration. Collaboration with professional advisors. It might take you years to develop this collaboration, but it's worth it. The professional advisors through them you are gaining credibility among your donors, and potentially you might end up with a major gift. Now, let's talk about the key trends. And I think some of my colleagues will talk about this even more. But digital dominance is very important. You have to show your face digitally. Digital optimization is mandatory. Your donation form must be simple and mobile use, and leverage the QR codes to bridge the physical and digital experience. Next key trend is predictable revenue and recurring gifts. Pay attention to them. You have to understand the power of monthly giving. So promote recurring gifts, promote monthly giving. It creates a predictable revenue stream and dramatically increase donors' lifetime value. And statistic even proves that typically the recurring gifts give you 42% more annually than the one-time donors. And the biggest shift that we are noticing right now, which I mentioned when I talked about $1 trillion, is the asset-based giving. So the $1 trillion is held in non-cash assets, and those include stocks, segregated funds, pension plans, real estate, donor advice funds, and so on. So let's talk about just a few of them. Donor advice fund. Those those are the one of the fastest growing vehicle in philanthropy. In Canada, granting over $1.4 billion annually to 20,000 charities. So treat donor advice funds as a major gifts and steward those gifts. And I know if you are dealing with donor advice funds that your organization might get a check without the name of the donor. That doesn't mean you don't have to thank. Thank the donor advice fund, send them a letter, and ask them to thank the donor. You need to steward them to keep the donors donating to you through donor advice fund. Legacy or planned giving, normalize them. Focus on donors' values and impact, and educate your donor about the tax benefits, the gifts in wills or gifts from your estates, how important they are for their tax. Promote pledges and blended gifts. Pledges, I think you all know, you can ask your donor to donate $10,000 and ask them to maybe do it over X amount of years. Blended gifts are now very important for all organizations. Those include cash now, which might include a gift, a pledge or a cash plus a gift in a will. So those are the blended gifts. So I have a donor that they want to donate $1 million, but they cannot do it right now with the cash. So I suggested to them, can you donate, make a blended gift, and can you afford to give us, let's say, $10,000 during your lifetime and the rest in your will. And this was doable to a donor, and the donor is recognized actually now for $1 million gifts. So suggest to your donor blended gifts. And finally, family foundations, identify them and build the relationship, and then from there you can go and ask for a gift. So those are the main strategies and trends in fundraising in just 10 minutes. I have a list. I can, if you like, just come after the speech and I can give you the list of things to do and not to do. I can quickly go over it. So again, things to start doing or continue doing is digital optimization, advisor relationship building, proactive stewardship, CRM check. This is very important. Make sure when you speak with your donor, you put the note in your CRM. It will help you with stewarding this donor to a higher gift. And make sure if the donor is not nice or say something bad, don't put this in CRM, because the donor can ask you, can I see my profile? And you don't want the donor to see that you make a bad comment about him. So keep that in mind. Promote legacy giving, and promote and ask your board members to help you stewarding your donors. Things not to do: transactional fundraising, asking only for cash gifts, treating donor advice funds as anonymous, waiting for the perfect moment to ask, and ignoring donor feedback. So that's, I think, that's it for my notes. And I think I'm going to ask the next person to speak. Is it you, Bohdana?
Thank you. Thank you for that very informative talk. Now I'd like to introduce Bohdana Bashuk, Executive Director of Shevchenko Foundation, to come up.
I'm still trying to get over $1 trillion. Boy, то би було щось. Дякую вам за запрошення. Мені дуже приємно бути з вами сьогодні. Я хочу поговорити про відносини між тими, які дають гроші, і з тими, які потребують гроші. So today I'd like to talk to you about how to be more successful, in reaching that goal of getting dollars for your project, whether it's from the Shevchenko Foundation or from any other funding body. So let's start with something about funders, the people that you want to convince to give you some money for your project. There are many different types of grant funders in Canada. There are government agencies, corporate funders, academic institutions, foundations, not-for-profit organizations, and there's the Shevchenko Foundation. TSF, a community-based foundation, Canada's leading charitable organization dedicated to supporting Ukrainian-Canadian culture and building a strong Ukrainian-Canadian community. TSF started with $30,000 in 1963, surplus funds from the production and the erection of the monument to Taras Shevchenko in Winnipeg. In the early days, TSF gave out very, very small grants to only a small handful of worthy projects. The first one being $400 in 1964, followed shortly by a very princely amount of $5,000 to 3 projects, including the now go-to translation of Shevchenko's poetry by Andrusishin and Kirkconnell. Over the past 62 years, the fund has grown to fund an average 130 grants per year, for a total to date of nearly 3,400 organizations and individuals, individual projects, organizational projects, in the amount of some $11 million in grant funding. I understand that our annual report has been circulated in the room. Do take a look to see how we did this past fiscal year. I won't get into the detail on that. So let's talk about why funders do what they do, and in particular, why the TSF does what it does. All funders have their reasons for doing what they do. They may want to encourage arts or science, innovation, or the advancement of their faculty, or the evolution of their community, or even their country. For over 60 years, the only mission of the TSF has been and continues to be to preserve, to develop, and promote Ukrainian-Canadian arts, heritage, education, and the development of our community, to give opportunities and resources to individuals and organizations to tell our stories the way we want our story to be told. We want the Ukrainian Canadian community to thrive, to grow, and to continue to make its mark in the Canadian cultural landscape. So what exactly do we do? We build and sustain a permanent endowment fund. This is the core aspect of any funder's work, because without sustained growth, we funders cannot fulfill our mandates. We fundraise just like you do, like most community funders, and just like you and your organizations, we actively engage donors in order to raise those funds. We invest the donated and raised funds carefully and prudently and use the returns on those investments to fund the projects that our grantees apply for. We report on those activities regularly so that our community, our stakeholders, know how their donated dollars are working in the community. We also report annually to our regulators, the Canada Revenue Agency. Most importantly, abiding by their rules is existential to any Canadian registered charity. And we give out grants. TSF has developed and enhanced a professional granting program. We have identified 4 funding pillars: arts, heritage, education, and community development, and developed a comprehensive grant application process for both organizations and for individuals. We accept grants twice yearly with deadlines April 1st and October 1st. The applications are scrutinized for all requirements and then forwarded to the Board of Directors for review and allocation. And as with any funding agency, those applications that are well written have promise to make a positive impact in their field and on the greater community receive funding. So those are the 3 hallmarks of all funders: build and sustain permanent endowment funds, develop and maintain granting programs, and allocate funding. So what are funders looking for in a grant application? What do they want to know about you and your project? There are 6 key factors that funders will zero in on when they're assessing a funding request. The first thing, and the most important thing, is mission alignment. Funders want to see that your mission and your goals align with their own, that their investment will contribute to a cause that they care about. Shevchenko's mission is to strengthen the Ukrainian community in Canada and enrich the Canadian experience with the beauty, passion, and diversity of Ukrainian Canadian culture. Any application to the Shevchenko Foundation has to align with that mission. The second factor, the second key factor, is impact potential. Funders want to fund organizations and individuals who have the potential to make a significant impact in their field. They want to know that their funding will be used to create positive change and to achieve meaningful outcomes. The next factor is sustainability. Funders want to ensure that their investment will be used wisely and that the organization will be able to sustain its programs and activities beyond that initial funding period. They also look for capacity. Funders want to see that the organization or an individual have the capacity and the expertise to successfully carry out the proposed project or program. They want to see experience, planning, a strong track record of success, and an ability to manage funds effectively. Obviously, organizations will have different capacity to individuals. In order to show capacity, organizations should demonstrate their experience and expertise in the area of the project, including previous projects or programs that they have successfully completed. They should provide information about their staff, about their volunteers, their board of directors, as well as the financial and administrative systems to show capacity to be able to manage a project effectively. They should show that they have the capacity to enter into partnerships or collaborations with other community groups, organizations, in order to achieve the project goals. They should show evidence that their resources, including their financial, human, and physical resources, that they have these things in order to be able to implement their project. And they should show a detailed project plan. Don't just assume that you can write a narrative, give me some money. We need a detailed plan with timelines and milestones. As I mentioned, individuals are different from organizations, and funders will often see individuals applying for a grant as a bit riskier, a higher risk than an organization. So applications from individuals are scrutinized a little more carefully. And the most effective way for an individual to prove capacity is to show relevant experience, previous work history, training, education. This shows that the individual has those necessary skills and knowledge to carry out the project. Collaborate with other individuals and organizations. This demonstrates support and expertise of others in their field, and provide a detailed plan that includes an outline of the required resources and how they're going to be used, timelines and milestones included. Another key factor that fundraisers look for is innovation. Funders want to see that organizations are willing to try new things and take inventive risks in order to achieve a goal, a project goal. And the last key factor is when we assess applications is collaboration, as I mentioned. Funders often look for organizations and individuals willing to collaborate with others in the field to achieve shared goals. They want to see commitment to building partnerships and working with others to achieve greater impact. So you can reach success with a strong grant proposal that is clear, concise, and compelling. So what makes it so? Start by telling us who you are. A lot of people just take it for granted that we know who you are, but we don't always know who you are. First and foremost, fill in the blanks, tick off the boxes, and make sure that the person who's filling out your application, especially on behalf of your organization, has all the resources necessary to fill out that application. If you're an organization, provide your corporate name, your registered charity number, your not-for-profit number, provide contact information of your headquarters or office, and also the contact information of the person filling out the application. Funders will request bylaws, a listing of current directors, financial statements. They expect audited financial statements, or in lieu of that, a most recent profit and loss and balance sheet. As mentioned, funding individuals is riskier than funding an organization because there are no built-in checks, such as a board of directors, annual or an annual general meeting or audits of financials. That's why it's even more important for individuals applying for funding to fulfill all the necessary requirements of the grant application. If the funder requests 3 reference letters, don't give us 2, and definitely not one from your mother. Funders don't want to delve into an individual's personal finances, but they will want to know how you're going to fund your project and who your partners are going to be, and we want to know everything about the partners as well. So now that we know who you are, what do you want to do? What are you dreaming to do? What do you want to achieve by doing it? Remember that in describing what you want to do, what your project is, the funder is looking at how your proposal aligns with their values and priorities. Whether you're an organization or an individual, provide a well-articulated narrative of the project you wish to undertake. Funders want to know why you want to do what you want to do. A well-expressed, carefully completed application satisfies the who and the what, who you are and what you want to do and how you're going to do it. But it really is the why that will be the funder's most important consideration. How does the project advance the mission and vision of the granting body? In the case of the Shevchenko Foundation, the project must contribute to enriching the Canadian experience with the beauty, passion, and diversity of Ukrainian Canadian culture. It must contribute to strengthening the Ukrainian community in Canada, and it must share Ukrainian Canadian cultural contributions with a broad and diverse public on a community, regional, or national level. The project should be meaningful to your organization. It should help advance your own goals and bring wider community understanding of your work. And as an individual, it should advance your potential and build your talent. The A project or program should benefit the immediate and greater community by educating, entertaining, and sharing the values expressed by the funder. So now what? The application is completed. What happens next? The assessment. Once you have fulfilled all the requirements and obligations of the application, the next step is that assessment. Each grant is judged and scored fairly, guided by the criteria of integrity, sustainability, excellence, and innovation. In assessing an application, Shevchenko Foundation looks for project quality. Are the goals of the project and those undertaking the project well articulated? Are relevant support materials included? Does the project demonstrate an understanding of present-day industry standards of excellence and public engagement in corresponding to the appropriate pillars of arts, heritage, education, and community development? Are the indicators of success of the project within the organizational and key personnel resources capacity of the applicant? TSF looks at the contribution to the Ukrainian community in Canada. Does the project advance the relevancy of Ukrainian cultural heritage by connecting people and strengthening communities for the enrichment of Canada? Is the project impact local or regional or national? What's the value-added contribution of the project that distinguishes it beyond existing Ukrainian cultural heritage content and similar activities? And finally, we look at financial viability and organizational stability. How convincing is the financial viability of the project? Are cost estimates well researched and convincingly supported? What are the consequences and contingencies of project shortfalls? Will the project still be viable if it does not receive the projected revenues in grant support and public support? Are the qualifications and responsibilities of key project personnel made clear? So now that we've answered all of those questions, the assessment may result in you getting a grant or not. Funders may reject grant applications for a variety of reasons. All applications are in competition with each other for funding, and most funders will rate applications based on the factors that I've mentioned. The closer you are to meeting the funder's requirements, priorities, and criteria, the closer you are to being first in line to receive funding from what may be a limited pot. Another reason for rejection could be the availability of funding. In any given granting year, a funder must consider their own financial capacity for funding applications. There will be richer years, and there will be leaner years. The funder may see great merit and positive attributes in your project proposal, but note a lack of clarity or vision. You may be requested to go back to the drawing board and resubmit your application, and this should be welcomed as a second chance, which the funder expects you're going to take. But if you're outright rejected, take the time to process your emotions. Don't take it personally. Get feedback from the funder why your application was not successful, but be prepared for some brutal honesty. Consider alternative funding sources. Remember, a rejection is a normal part of the funding process. Keep persevering, keep walking on. But if your application is successful, there is the expectation from the funder that you're going to acknowledge the granting funding in the way that the funder expects you to. In the instance of the Shevchenko Foundation, you'll be advised of the name of the fund from which your grant has come, and you must acknowledge it, whether it is the Temerte Community Development Fund, the Horodinsky Music Fund, or the Zoriana and Eugene Haivoron Fund. It doesn't matter. You must acknowledge it. You'll be asked, and you must, as I said, acknowledge this, and you will be given all the materials with which to do that. And then there's the issue of final reporting. Final reporting provides an opportunity for grant recipients to demonstrate that they have fulfilled the terms of their grant and have achieved the intended outcomes of the project. This information is also important for the funder, as it is an effective tool in evaluating the impact of their investment. The final report also helps to build strong relationship between the grant recipient and the funder, and establishes trust and credibility, and provides you in good standing for future funding. In the end, I want to leave you with quick tips for successful application funding. Begin early. For God's sakes, please don't send us your application at midnight on April 1st. You've got time. Take the time, get it done early. Read the guidelines carefully. Write clearly and directly. Create a realistic budget and be detailed and concise, but please don't be so wordy. And I leave you with two key takeaways. Number one, align your project with the mission and values of your funder. And number two, do not take any requirements for granted. Дякую.
Дуже дякую, Bohdana. Now I'd like to introduce Krystina Waler, Director of Ukrainian Initiatives with Timotei Foundation. Прошу.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be up here on stage with colleagues and from organizations that the Timotei Foundation is proud to support. As mentioned, the Timotei Foundation was started in 1997 by Jim and Louise Timotei. Jim would be Kostya to many of you in this room. You may know that Pan Timotei was born in Donbass, came to Canada when he was 9 years old, worked hard and now feels a strong sense of responsibility to give back to his community. He is a humble and modest man, but I would like to say one point of pride for the foundation this year was when Mr. Timotei was named National Legend of Ukraine by President Zelensky, and it was an honor to be there to watch him receive it. And he was honored with this because of his dedication to strengthening communities in Canada and for his support for Ukraine itself. The Timotei Foundation has 4 key pillars. It's healthcare, social inequality, climate, and Ukraine. And Ukraine makes up about 30% of our funding. It's so great to see many of the organizations here that we support, like I mentioned, Shevchenko Foundation, Canada-Ukraine Foundation, of course, the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, Help Us Help, the Ukrainian World Congress, UNF, the Banduristy, Ukrainian Jewish Encounter, SVI, SUSK, REC, many, many more. I can't name them all, but these are all such important organizations in our community. So again, thank you for inviting me to join this important conversation that goes to the heart of our community's strength and how we can support and sustain organizations serving Ukrainian Canadians across the country. Today, I'd like to offer you the perspective of a privately funded foundation. So you'll hear some similar themes to what Bohdana had said and to what Orysia said. But from our vantage point, the most meaningful question is, how can we work together to build strong, resilient institutions that serve our community for generations? We're so fortunate to have generational organizations like CUF and Shevchenko here with us, ones that have stood the test of time. And we believe it's incredibly important to sustain organizations like this in our community that will help it thrive for years to come. Foundations are long-term partners in community building. At the Timotei Foundation and many private foundations, one of the core beliefs is we don't succeed unless community organizations succeed. Our role isn't simply to fund projects, it's to strengthen the institutions that support people, culture, identity, and resilience. Organizations that keep our community together and hold it up. For us, support is relational, it's not transactional. We look for partners, we look for collaborators, organizations that we can work with and grow with over time. The most meaningful impact happens when we build relationships based on trust, transparency, and shared purpose. I want to take a bit of a look at community from the community landscape view. Foundations often zoom out and look at larger community landscapes. We'll ask questions like, what does the Ukrainian Canadian community need right now? Where are the emerging gaps? Which organizations are stepping up to fill those gaps? And how do all of these pieces work together? For the Ukrainian Canadian community, these questions are essential right now because we're trying to do so much. We're supporting newcomers, we're preserving culture, we're responding to trauma, we're engaging youth, we're getting humanitarian aid together for Ukraine, and no single group can do it all on their own. We rely on partners to help, and it's important to collaborate together. So I encourage everybody, first and foremost, to invest in their organizational health. Programs can only succeed when the organization behind them is strong. Foundations pay close attention to governance, to leadership, financial accountability, strategic planning, staff capacity, and most importantly, long-term sustainability. Who are your members, and who are the members that are going to take the organization into the future? We want to know that we're investing in an organization that's going to last for years to come. And philanthropy is changing, and that's a good thing for communities. Across Canada, the philanthropic sector is evolving. There's an association called the Philanthropic Foundations of Canada, and they put out a report. And in one of their most recent reports, they said that in 2021, they estimated that there was $135 billion worth of philanthropic funds between private and public foundations in Canada. And we're seeing that these funds are more trust-based. We're offering more flexible funding. We're listening more to community organizations. And importantly, we're collaborating more. So funders are meeting more often, they're talking to each other, and they're trying to make sure that their dollars are stretching far, because as much as I wish that the dollars were infinite, they aren't. We are limited. One of the ways that we are taking this seriously is working on a pooled fund. This is for our support for Ukraine itself and for local NGOs in Ukraine that are providing vital mental health and psychosocial support. We're working with 6 other foundations across the world. So foundations from Germany, France, from Austria. We're creating a pooled fund where local small NGOs in Ukraine can apply to one funder, one pooled fund, one report, and help them. It will be, over the next 3 years, it'll be 300 million euros, or sorry, oh my gosh, sorry. No, my gosh, that was wrong. 3 million euros. Don't quote me. Yeah, exactly. I wish it was 300. 3 million euros that local NGOs can apply to receive smaller grants, and it's less burdensome and cumbersome for them. So collaboration is essential, not only for organizations applying for funding, but also for the funders themselves. We are drawn to organizations that work together to reduce duplication, share resources, and strengthen the broader community. Collaboration multiplies impact and increases funder confidence. I would encourage everyone here today to take advantage of so many organizations being in one place and one time and see how you can work together. Collaboration doesn't mean losing your own identity. It means multiplying your impact. In a moment when needs are so high and resources are so limited, collaboration is the strongest indicator of strategic leadership and long-term vision to funders like us. Foundations also have responsibilities. We need to be stewarding funds responsibly. We need to listen and learn from the community itself. We need to offer a longer-term commitment so that partners can rely on longer-term funding. So one of the examples of that is our new fund that I know Boris Balan mentioned this morning, working with Shevchenko Foundation, called the Timurtei Sustainability Fund, which organizations will have the opportunity to learn more about in the new year. It's important for us to invest in resilience. Another role that we take seriously is our responsibility to convene, to help communicate between organizations on what everybody's doing, bring people together, and encourage collaboration. So in closing, if foundations and community leaders work in partnership, if we invest in leadership, in organizational strength, in collaboration, if we look beyond short-term projects, which are also important, I don't want to say that they're not, but if we think about legacy and long-term resiliency, then we will create a stronger Ukrainian-Canadian community capable of supporting our people here in Canada and in Ukraine, not only for today, but for decades to come. I'll just add one thing. I know some people may want to hear more about the application process and how to work with foundations. I am able to answer that later if that's of interest.
Thank you, Krystina. Now I'd like to introduce the final speaker, Valeriy Kostyuk, Executive Director of the Canada-Ukraine Foundation. Proszę.
Thank you so much. I have to say, after such wonderful speeches, I don't know what else to add. But thank you. I have to thank everyone for supporting Canada-Ukraine Foundation, and I have to say, as much as we are used to giving out grants, we are also active fundraisers, and our goal is to raise funds so that we can spend and fund really impactful programs. We talked a lot yesterday about what CUF has done, so I won't repeat myself, but I have to say, over the last 30 years, we have changed. The scale of the projects has changed, and the types of projects that we fund have changed. When we're looking at how the full-scale invasion have changed us, I think the most prominent program that we currently have is CUF UCC, Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal. And yesterday you may have heard that we're almost at $100 million worth of aid through CUF UCC, Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal. I don't want to mislead anyone and say that that we're sitting on $100 million. Not at all. Our goal over the past 30 years was to very quickly deliver aid. We are in the sector of delivering emergency relief and etc., which we end up doing, I'd say, probably at the cost of building up our endowment and having that cushion that many established organizations have, like Shevchenko Foundation has, and other foundations. So when the full-scale invasion has started, for us it was important to deliver aid quickly. And of course, the number of donations that are coming in is dropping significantly. So for us, it's important to come to a sustainable level where we're able to continue delivering what Ukraine needs, and those needs change. For instance, Canada-Ukraine Foundation also has 2 grant intakes that every year, one in April, one in October. And I have to say, over the past couple of years, the amount of requests that we're receiving has also changed. For instance, in the fall of last year, the amount of grant applications that we received, it was about 104. In the spring, in April of this year, the number of applications went up to 170. And in October, our recent grant intake has went up to almost 300 applications, valued at about $5 million. So, as Bohdana has been mentioning, we are going through a rigorous process of identifying initiatives that are sustainable long-term and that we can afford, because the funds are limited. As revenues from donations drop, we're trying to understand why. Of course, we see financial uncertainty currently in Canada. We see donor fatigue as well. And we're also working on ways of having Canada-Ukraine Foundation be more present outside of the Ukrainian Canadian community. Now, I have to say, I'm not a marketer, I'm not a fundraiser, but we do collaborate, and I think with Orysia, we've spent a lot of time analyzing and trying to see how can CUF do better, and we appreciate that very much. However, what I think is important to to CUF right now is to be able to come up with a strategy that makes Canadians care about supporting Ukraine and counteracting all of these challenges that we just talked about. Something that I think is an important aspect of successful fundraising is also building a strong team. And at the CUF, we do have, I think, a really strong team. It's a combination of both volunteers and a combination of office staff. Our volunteers and board members and committee members are backbone of what we do that allow us to sustain the scope of the work that we do, but also our office team. Something that is very important to us is that CUF has dedicated, let's call them departments or individuals that specialize in what they do. So we currently have a dedicated team to marketing. We have a dedicated team to donor relations. We also have a dedicated team to projects that is working on the in and the out. We also have made a lot of progress in identifying what is that we are communicating, what is the product that we're offering. You know, one thing that I've learned in my previous career is how to sell tickets and how to get, as we used to say, bums into seats at theaters and visitors into our galleries. So, one important aspect that we've always been analyzing every single time when we were launching a new production is who's our audience and why would they want to participate, to buy a ticket. So we're kind of using a similar strategy in some of our marketing campaigns that we've been running in order to generate revenue. And you know, as we all agree, I think we are limited in funds. Although we do want to support as many projects as possible, it's not as sustainable. And we all here donate to various causes. And with the war in Ukraine going on for as long as it's already going on, I think we all feel strained. There's a lot of demand and needs in Ukraine, and we're trying our best to sustain it, but we were not. But what's really important is for us to be able to make the Canadian society, that's about 40 million, to also care and participate. And you know, essentially what we're able to do as a community is inspire those to participate. So what we've been doing over the last couple of years is thinking outside the box and connecting with new donors, new audiences that potentially have never heard about Canada-Ukraine Foundation before. So we are not afraid of taking cautious risk, and we are expanding. So over the last little bit, we've ended up spending a little bit more time utilizing channels of mainstream media. So that includes Meta, such as Instagram and Facebook. So we have a strong presence there. We also are not afraid of going outside of our community and utilizing mainstream television channels. So you probably see us more often now on CBC, CTV, and your regional radio stations. I think from our standpoint, it is driving results. Our average right now is about 25. Our average new donors per campaign is an average between 20 and 25%, which help us, you know, not only, you know, motivate our donors, existing donors, to donate more, but we're also bringing in that additional resource in order to make our ability a little bit stronger. Also, something that has been very important for us is to be bilingual in both official languages of Canada. So we've spent a lot of time investing into French content and French communications, and that has reaped fruit, and we've doubled the amount of donations that we're bringing in by the communities in Quebec. Now, one thing that I'll say is that not to be afraid on fundraising campaigns to spend money on marketing. I think we're very, very conservative when it comes to spending money on marketing, and it's paying off as well. We're generating about, once again, for every single dollar that we spend on marketing, we generate about $20, $25 back, depending on the campaign as well. And I think it's a great result. We're also implementing an internal donor relations program, which we've been working on fine-tuning. And I think it's an important step in us, as Isa has highlighted, to maintain those relationships. Over the last couple of years, we've started to also focus and adjust to the realities that are happening in Ukraine. So be it on the fundraising side, we're focusing on specific issues, such as we had a dedicated campaign for Ahmadit, we had a dedicated campaign for winterization initiatives, power and energy, we had a mental health campaign, children's issues campaign addressing the issues of abducted children, and medical campaign. So we're trying to make sure that we're focusing attention of our donors and the general public on issues that are happening in Ukraine and how we as CAF are trying to address them. And on the granting side, we also change from each grant intake, we change the types of projects that we're focusing on in that specific grant intake, and also the benchmarks of funding that we have. So we're trying to be as fluid as possible. We're trying to be as strategic as possible. We're trying to be as innovative as possible in order to draw attention to our cause. And all of this is also done in the spirit of collaboration. Because we as a community, we're only 1.4 million, 1.5, but the population of Canada is much larger. So let's work together to inspire all these people, all these 40 million people that live here, to be with us and help us be successful and help Ukraine win. And I think when it comes to meaningful and impactful collaborations, and that's what I want to leave my remarks on, it's really important to be open to collaboration and not be protective over your own projects. I think Krystina has highlighted it very well, that when we're doing something together, we can do it bigger and we can do it better. And that's the strategy that we've been using. I think over the last year, we've, for instance, with Temerte Foundation, we've collaborated and supported Save Ukraine and the rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration of Ukrainian children. With Ukrainian World Congress, we've coordinated on Veteran Hub and Trust Line for veterans there. And with the Shevchenko Foundation, at the beginning of the war, we've collaborated on student bursaries to help the displaced students that have arrived to Canada. So I think this is a fine example of us collaborating, doing more for Ukraine, people of Ukraine, and its victory. So thank you. Let's continue collaborating, and because together we're stronger. Thank you.
Дуже дякую. We'll now open up for questions if anybody has any questions for the panelists. And you have mics at your seats there that you can use, or you can come up. Прошу.
Дякую. Thank you, everyone, for your responses, for your insights. My name is Katerina. I'm a UCC Youth Ambassador, and I'm coming here from Ottawa. So my big question is, since we all are in the spirit of collaboration, is how do we expand our funders' base outside of the Ukrainian-Canadian community? How do we engage Canadians and other cultural diaspora groups, other businesses, other organizations, governments? How do we make those connections, and what would be the strategy? Thank you.
Who would like to take that question?
I think Asya is best suited, but I can say a little bit on it. from the private foundation perspective. So I think one of the things you could start doing is just some research. So some of the websites that I think are valuable to just find more information about the philanthropic sector in Canada, I can share with you. So one would be Imagine Canada. They have a Grant Connect website that will show you a list of all the different things, grants available. They'll also speak about some of the private foundations. Charitydata.ca, look up different organizations, find out more about them, find out what their priorities are, what they funded in the past, and what their capabilities are for funding. Of course, the CRA lists charities and qualified donees. There's an open government portal called Charities Data Set, also that you can go to find information. The organization I mentioned previously, Philanthropic Foundations of Canada, can be a good resource about foundations, private and public, and who they are and what they represent and what their interests are. Community Foundations of Canada. Community foundations are an important player in the in the landscape of Canada, and are a good resource. And the last one I would say is Charity Village. Charity Village also has a lot of good resources. I see a lot of people nodding their heads, so I think I'm encouraged to see. I think people have been doing some homework. And then as far as applying goes, I think Bohdana covered a lot of what most foundations want to see, not just Shevchenko. So you've got to start with alignment. Ensure mission alignment, and like I said, research. You've got to express what the need is. So you've got to be able to really articulate what gap you're filling and what the need is. And you absolutely have to demonstrate organizational strength, strong leadership, governance, transparency, and sustainability. One of the things that's important for us is a charitable status. So if you don't have it, working with an organization that does to implement your project is vital for private foundations in Canada. And build a connection. Don't just come in right away necessarily and make an ask. Try to reach out, build a connection, and familiarize the organization with you. Build a longer-term relationship, share updates, engage through partnerships, and be clear and realistic when you're approaching these organizations. Don't exaggerate and don't overpromise. I've talked about collaboration, and also follow up thoughtfully. Keep foundations informed, keep different organizations informed, reach out to different groups, tell them what you're doing, and tell them, explain why you think it's important that they join, and give them a role, make them feel like they're part of it. What I'll end with on that is that foundations genuinely want you to succeed. They want to be partners with successful organizations, and mutual alignment drives strong partnerships.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add? Yeah.
And from the standpoint of public campaigns, from CUF's experience, I think what we found really, really impactful is identifying topics that are relevant, for instance, to Canadians or other communities. For instance, when it comes to winterization, we know what it's like to get through the cold and how much we enjoy having warm homes and holiday season and all that stuff. So how can you tell a story in such a way that allows Canadians to understand, for instance, or give it some thought, what it's like to not have a winter season that would be as romantic as what we are able to experience here. Like for instance, in mental health, we also had a really impactful partnership together with General Romeo Dallaire, who's speaking later today. And Canadians understand his story. We all know what he has gone through. And we were able to, through the lens of his story, emphasize what Ukrainians are going through today and what they're living through and the support that they need on the mental health side. We can go on and on. For instance, our children's campaign that we've ran recently, specifically for the abductions of children, we partnered with Chantal Kreviazek, and we were talking about Canadian past and some of the issues that we've had here. It's making Canadians understand what Ukraine's issues are from the lens of the perspective that Canadians understand. So that's on the public campaign side.
Дякую. We'll go to Andriu.
Hello, добрий ранок. The title of this thing is called Funding Our Community, by the way. And I put that out to the audience. When I was president of the Shevchenko Foundation, I worked for Bohdana as best as I could. I do have two questions for Bohdana and Krystina. But quite says funding our community. If you are sitting at a table right now and you have donated to the foundation, I guarantee you the person to your right and the left have never given $1. And yet they're in a room at a Congress saying that they're supporting the community. It's called skin in the game. If you got $50, you donate. If you have $100, you donate. That our ancestors that came here gave everything to build our community halls and all that. So that's the first point. The other thing, and I've got my questions coming, when the foundation, whether it's Temerte or Shevchenko, give money, go out of your way to tell your audience that they have, right? Go out of your way. It's up to you to help fundraise for the Shevchenko Foundation and for the Temerte Foundation and for CUF, for that matter. So that's a bit of a lesson. The other thing is your community money does weird things. CUF didn't exist until a group of directors, including the directors of the Shevchenko Foundation, took $100,000 of community capital to help create CUF. It's actually a daughter or a son. But the foundation was heavily criticized for creating this Ukrainian-focused organization because Ukraine is independent. So these people need the money. Here are the questions. Because as president of the Bangladesh, who are coming here December 21st, by the way, and if you're 22 and under, you can get into our concert for free. There's a free plug. We've received money from the foundations up there. This is about skin in the game. So this is about when you're evaluating grants and people are giving you grants, the role of the organization having skin in the game. That is, if we're getting 100,000, do you have 100,000 to match it? If you got 20,000 looking grant, do you have 20,000 to match that? And how important that is in modern applications. So I look forward to seeing everybody December 21 at the Dormition of Mary Church in Kauthra, and you guys can answer your questions. Дякую.
Who would like to take that question? Bohdana, дякую.
Check one. Here we go. It is on. Дякую, Andriu. I was speaking earlier about, financial capacity. So when we're assessing grants, that is a very important element of what we're looking at. If you're asking for $15,000 to create a film, and you're in the first phase of your film project, we want to see that you have gone to other funders first and foremost, and whether you've checked off the box that the funder says, yes, we will also be providing you with funding, not maybe necessarily matching, but yeah, we've got, Canada Council coming at 30,000, we've got this coming at 40,000, whatever. That is an indication that this is a project, that this is a grant that we can give with a sense of confidence that it's going to land, that it's going to go through phase 1 and perhaps phase 2 and phase 3. So you have to show when you're applying for a grant that you have other sources of revenue, but not just what you think might be, like at the Dragon's Den. I think I have about $1 million. I know what I'm going to do with it, and so give me some more. You have to show that the money is landing, or is about to land, or has landed. We're not going to, well, sometimes the Shevchenko Foundation does take a risk on something that they feel is very, very important. And we might be the first money in on a big project, but we have confidence when we do that, that this is a project that will in fact land and will happen. Дякую.
Дякую. Please.
Я маю.
Oh, sorry, Krystina. My apologies.
Very quickly, I would echo almost everything that Bohdana said. A big part of our application is asking who else you've asked, when you've asked them, if they've pledged, and often throughout the process, we'll follow back up with the person requesting the funds to see if they've received any of the other grants that they've applied for. It's important for us to diversify the funding. One organization that recently came to us as an example, they asked for $50,000, and we said, we'll give you the last 10. Show us that you can raise the other 40.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have a question, especially for Shevchenko Foundation. But I'm going to start with, yesterday we heard how wonderful the Canadian diaspora has been in the past. We probably in the Ukrainian community have too many organizations, but there are many organizations that are having problems. And my question is, to what extent is keeping an organization alive, to what extent do they, are they considered by the Shevchenko Foundation? Concretely, Naukowe Towarzystwo imienia Shevchenka, it's a little organization that has existed for, well, all over, it started in the 19th century, but in Canada for, what, 75 years. It's always existed by volunteers. Well, life has changed. Now you need insurance, you need financial statements. All of these things cost money. Members, you can't get it all from memberships. Now, grant, to ask for, you're talking about projects. Now, we don't need projects, we need money to exist. Quite often.
Sorry, can we get to the question?
Okay,
Sorry.
the question is, have you considered, well, giving money for existing, but also having a different approach to an organization that has asked for money in the past? It has proved to you that it is a good organization, that it's worthy of sending money. The next time it asks, do you have to go through the whole loops again? Can't you just, at least for some time, make the loop a little bit smaller?
Thank you.
There's a lot in there, Pani Taniu. Дякую. We understand that there are organizations who are struggling because they are run by volunteers. They have limited resources. They're concerned about their future. Shevchenko Foundation cannot give money for operating expenses. That's not what we do. But we provide money for, as you were saying, for projects that will help support not just the project, but also the underlying operations to make that project happen. As for the last question you asked about, як ви подаєтеся на грант вже 6-й рік, чи ви мусите післати, do you have to go through the entire rigmarole over and over again? I think you have to, because it is a competitive process after all. Can we limit the kind of information that we require from a grant applicant who applies year after year after year? Yes, perhaps that is definitely something that we could look to do, to limit the amount of material that we require from you in order to be able to make a decision about whatever it is that you are applying for. I hope, Pani Taniu, that answers your question, ale my możemy przy kawie porozmawiać. Ja знаю, tak. Please, by all means, feel free to come up to me, to any of our directors who are here. Boris is here as well. We're happy to answer, any questions that you might have specifically.
Дякую. We have about 7 minutes left, and I know we have 4 questions. So let's try and get to the question and response so everybody has a chance. And these folks are going to be around after the session and are willing to speak to everybody and anybody who would like to speak to them. So we'll start with...
Alexander Romenko, UCC National. So my question is, can we as a Hromada be more proactive looking for government funding and funding through the foundations like KAF or Shevchenko Foundation or Temertey family, funding the administrative expenses, which is pretty much 100 times leverage. And my favorite example, as you probably know, is the MITEX project. So we got $10 million from the government of Canada to fund these 1,000 research internships for Ukrainian students, and we spent less than 1% to promoting this project and stuff like that. And to allude to, I will be coming to pretty much all of you because we are signing a new 3-year agreement between MITEX and Ukraine's Ministry of Education and Science. So hope to have, we had 1,000 interns, as I said, hope to have at least 300 more interns in the next 3 years. But how we can use this type of connections, fund administrative expenses, but get 100 times more from government funding. Дякую.
Дякую. Anybody want to make a comment?
I mean, I can talk. So I think, Alexander, I think it's important that organizations come together and apply for funding together. Or from our perspective, you know, we've been able to fund smaller pilot projects that has then given the proof that's needed to take to government, for example, that has then led to further funding. We did that recently with the Ukrainian World Congress. We funded a project they needed funded to show proof of concept, and then they were able to go to the government and get further funding. I spoke to Valeriy recently about the fact that going and asking for a grant, you know, it's hard because the government likes to grant to the Red Cross. The government likes to grant to all these big organizations, but CUF has done a really good job of building their track record with the government and getting smaller amounts of funding and growing it. And I'd say that they were lucky as a community to now have the respect of the government who's willing to consider applications from them as a partner. So I'd ask Valeriy to speak about that a little.
So, I mean, I'm gonna also be brief in that spirit. We do fund projects as Canada-Ukraine Foundation as well that are that create the base for a larger application to the government. I see General Dallaire just walked into the room together with Marie, and they'll be talking a little bit more about their mental health program that we co-funded with Fairfax that is becoming a base for a larger national approach to mental health. So we do support projects like that, and there is opportunity to grow and turn it into a larger solution. And you know, our track record with the government, we are exploring opportunities and actively working on submitting applications to grow some of our existing projects. For instance, one of the programs that is a legacy program at CUF is QSAP that Krystina has been involved in at the beginning, and you know, it has reached a point where, for instance, we need to take it to the next level as well. So I think from our perspective, we like the step-by-step approach and I would say managing the risks that we're taking in order to take the projects to the next level.
Дякую.
Дякую. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you so much.
Ліда Барченська, Ола, Берry, Uno. Я запитаю по-англійськи. Is it possible for all of your organizations to set up an emergency loan and grant fund for the Q8 students who are on hold as displaced persons because they can't apply for loans or grants for universities? And I'm talking about children or young people who are 17 or 18 years old who have in grade 12 marks such as 97 and 98 in physics and math, and yet their hopes are on hold because they cannot afford the universities that would accept them. Is there a plan amongst all the fundraising organizations or philanthropic organizations to set up loans and grants for students?
Thank you. Would somebody like to?
Two things come to mind. When the first wave of people from Ukraine started coming right after the incursion, we were able to partner with CUF the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, with a very generous amount, I believe it was $150,000 from CUF, to administer and run a program for the very students that you are talking about. They weren't, the high school students, but they were in their first year of university, and they were looking to continue their education. And we were able to provide grants of $5,000, well, not grants, but a bursary of $5,000 to each student. Incredible number of applications and an incredible quick process because we knew that we had to do this. Slightly out of our bailiwick, because our mandate is to support Ukrainian Canadian community and people who are citizens of Canada or have their permanent residency. But we were able to manage to do this. From that moment, we have not been able to do it again. I know that CUF has had to focus on many other things, since that very time. So to answer your question, no, we have not had conversations as the organizations that we represent up here to do that, to continue that. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen, but we would have to look for special funding for that.
And just to add to Bohdana's note, Alexander Romanko, who asked the previous question, has been working a lot on this issue, I know. So I think the issue is huge, and I think I don't want to say that it's beyond our capacity, but we can't do it alone. It needs to be a larger approach that is nationwide, and there's a lot of complexities that I learned from Alexander in order to solve these problems. So I think this is something that we all need to work on, once again, together in order to make this happen.
Thank you.
Brain Lepner from the University of Saskatchewan. Also, I'm a great Estonian friend of Ukrainians. I've been listening to the discussion on funding, and years ago, I got 8 grants from the NATO Partnership for Peace program for training health administrators and healthcare systems in Estonia. We went from a large centralized system to a decentralized health insurance model. And one of the things we learned about writing grants and administering grants is, so you get your first grant, and the speakers will speak to this too, that you get a lot of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 grants. It's pretty rare for you to start with a $2 million grant. But the main lesson is, so you get your first grant and things don't go quite as you planned. But you have to report this to your granting agency. And here's the main lesson. The temptation is very strong for you to hide your failures and to procrastinate till the last minute and then sweat like hell that they're going to read your report and you're worried that you're never going to get another grant again. So here's my advice. When things start to go different than the original plan, work with the person who's been assigned to look after your grant and tell them early. I may have to pay more for, in Estonia, for example, we didn't have to pay much for computers because Estonia is very computerized, but we had to pay more for quality assurance and for investing in how to measure whether my grant's going to be successful or not. So have the patience and have the initiative to work with your grant advisor and let them know things are going a little differently than I planned, but I'm still going to be able to meet the overall missions. And that way you'll make friends with whoever's administrating your grant, and you're going to be able to build trust.
Thank you.
That's my little piece of advice.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll just say I agree with that. I think that's why I mentioned that it's a relational gift from our foundation. We want to hear from you throughout the process.
Thank you. I think we have one final question, maybe one more squeeze in. Go ahead.
Thank you for the excellent presentation, Luca Patrician, Cook Edmonton. In terms of tactics, what is your advice for the most local organizations using artificial intelligence to evaluate sources of funding, submit grant proposals, and do compliance reporting? Thank you.
That's a very good question. Something that we've just sort of touched upon, in terms of discussions at the board level. How does AI, how does ChatGPT fit into all of this? I don't know quite how to answer your question, but I can tell you that it's on our radar.
Just one comment. When you use ChatGPT or any artificial intelligence, I think you all know this. When you ask them to do something, don't put the organization's name or your name. So later on, ChatGPT will pull that name and put it in somebody else's response. So just be aware of that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment?
I'll say I was having this conversation earlier that our organization uses AI. Pantimerte is very forward-thinking. He thinks it's a great tool, and he thinks that we should use it, incorporate it, do research with it. So we use it in our office. I actually put some of my talking points in and said, make this sound better, today. So I think it could be a good tool to help, when you're making your pitch and when you're finessing. I couldn't totally hear the question, so I don't know if it's how AI is playing a role in it, but I think AI is an important consideration, and as far as helping, I think it can be helpful in the grant making and applying process but like anything else, you have to check it and you have to work with it. I think it's a tool that helps facilitate, but it can't do it for you.
And just to add on the AI thing, at the end of the day, we also at CUF use AI from time to time because, we have limited resources and we need to make most out of it. But at the end of the day, it's all about the prompts and the instructions you give. So it's a whole entire process to work with AI. Your thoughts are still there, the intentions are still there, but it's this extra tool that can make your work slightly better sometimes, but not always.
It is also a good tool for prospect research. So in a hospital, we do use it. So if you have a donor that you think might give you X amount of money, just put the name and you might get the answers that you're looking for. So in a hospital, universities, we all use it. But again, be very cautious what you put, what information you put there, and use it.
Thank you.
Okay.
One quick question do you have? Or just, we've run out of time, but we'll squeeze you in here.
I can promise that it would be quick, but this would be in continuation of what Alexander brought and the previous community leader about Ukrainian students on QED. My name is Svetlana Kuminko. I'm a faculty at British Columbia Institute of Technology and Maple Hope Foundation Executive Director from Vancouver. I do understand that we need to have a national program, as Valeriy suggested. Ukrainian children that came on QED are really left outside. They are not eligible for student loans. They are not also eligible for any provincially funded programs that adults through continuing education eligible. And we, thanks to Canada-Ukraine Foundation, run for the third year national project on mental health, healing the wounds of the war together. From coast to coast, we have group support, we have individual counseling, and the team of 20+ Ukrainian-speaking clinical counselors and mental health professionals. So the ability to study or to work and succeed in this country depends on funding, unfortunately. The tuition fee at BCIT, where I work, costs $20,000 per year. Families are not, they're not capable to afford that. Usually it's moms with children, and they are left behind. And because they are left behind, we have them in our support groups with high level of anxiety, depression, and we do have a cases of suicide now. In Canada, we have cases of Ukrainians being in shelters, not able to afford rent. I would bring this as a suggestion that as a larger community, maybe we can do something together that these families can loan money that their children with very good academic achievements in high schools can continue education, because their future is very uncertain. There is no program for Ukrainians, and the mental health problems just skyrocketing, and I would be grateful if this can be taken forward and then we can brainstorm and do something. Not giving them as grants, but maybe a program of a student loan that they can go, study, work, and return this money if we are building a stronger community. Thank you so much.
Krystina?
So thank you. I don't know that I understood the depth of the issue, so thank you. I think this is an important conversation to have. I know I'd be willing to sit at a round table on this. I think it's also really important for us. We have a great funding resource that should have been mentioned throughout this presentation, and that's our credit unions. We're very, very fortunate to have Bodychny and Ukrainian Credit Union and the one in Montreal, Desjardins. And, you know, there's many that I don't know them all, and I apologize, but I think they're an important part of a conversation like that as well, and I'd like to just shout out the credit unions in our community and thank them as well.
Thank you. Amazing. What a great, rich conversation we had this past hour and a half. Thank you to all our presenters, providing us with some strategic thinking behind funding our communities, some do's, some don'ts, some practical tools. And we come away with further thoughts and discussions of how we can continue to build our community, making it stronger. I think this is just, a building block in the process in our roadway moving forward. And I just want to close this session by saying that about 25 years ago, I got married. Vodka and I made a decision that back in the day when we barely had even $5 in the account, we put in our will a percentage of our estate will go to the Shevchenko Foundation. And yeah. So my question to all of you is, have you put your estate into one of these organizations? If not, I challenge you to think about it. Go back to your family, talk about it, and consider putting a percentage. It could be 1%, 2%. It doesn't have to be a lot. But if everybody gives at least 1% of their estate to our organizations, we can continue doing this amazing work. Дуже дякую. This concludes our session.